This video is a celebration of a certain amount of subscribers that I hit about 4 days ago, and I was intending on making it so much sooner than I did. I hadn't realized how much work it would be to get this drawing done. So it's been about 4 days since that it's taken me to make this drawing. Sorry, in total, I think I counted it being about 5 hours. So that shows how much I spread out the drawing sessions. It was quite a bit of fun, I thought, because I had a comment recently on my How to Draw Like Peter Draws video about rotring pens. I thought I am overdue using those again. I did really enjoy using them a long time ago. And these days I have had so many new types of pens. I've been trying to paint and get better at using pencils. But one of the problems I came up with these rotring pens is if you neglect them, they don't they kind of clog up. So I was filling them up, and then I was filling up the cartridge too full, which means that it'd spill out the sides. It's a real rookie mistake, and I just hadn't considered how to be a bit more careful. So I thought I will just take advantage and create a messy, smeary, blotchy, inky fill around the image. There's a bit of texture, a bit of interest around the sides, which I wouldn't make with these very precise nibs. So that's what I was doing here, is trying to capitalize on my own mistake. This really freed me up. And when it came to having cartridges that were too full, I even dipped in a bit of tissue and then used that to start drawing, a lot heavier ink, because it just needed to drain some of the ink out of the cartridge. So I thought I'll just soak it up with the tissue and then use that as a paintbrush to create some interesting marks on the surface. And I think it really adds to the drawing. I mean, you can let me know what you think. Maybe you disagree, but to me, this is more interesting than if I would have just gone hatching and, more and more details. I think you need a break from all the details with some big patches of either black or white, or just areas where you don't have to process all this meticulous work. But then I made the mistake of having a cartridge open on the page, and I was wiping the tip of the ink refill, and then when I wiped it, it was on the tissue. So I thought, oh, that'll be wet on the tissue. I'll now use that tissue to create more marks. And then that fell over, the cartridge fell over and made a splat on the page. But again, I don't think that hurt. It was just certainly not planned. I thought, right, that's it now. Enough messy stuff. Time to try and clean up this drawing. I've covered a certain amount of area, and I think now I need to figure out how to make it work. And it was tricky at times because I wanted it to be a good drawing. I didn't want to just keep drawing and drawing without any input. So I wanted the reflection on where I was up to, what I liked and didn't like about it, and start to try to conceptualize how I want it to look at the end. Because when I do drawings like this, I have no idea what I'm working towards. I'm just focused in on each detail as I draw it. And then at the end of the day, when I've done an hour or so, I will put it to one side and look at it and say, I like this part, or I think that needs working on, and I'll just, go to bed and think about it. And then when I'm up the next day and I have some time to draw, that's what I'll work on, is what I've considered the day before. I think if I could do these drawings, if I could have done this in a day, like a 5-hour drawing session, even split up with breaks, and did several of these, I think that would be really good for me to have as a practice, because I could still use parts of the other parts of the day to paint. but I don't know if I have 5 hours spare, because at the moment I'm doing a lot of podcast editing, interviews for podcasts, doing lots of gallery visits and networking with artists in North Wales, talking to friends and making sure I keep a connection with people who aren't related to my business interests. Even though, to be honest, a lot of the artists that I meet in this quote networking unquote mindset that I have, I consider them friends. I'm not very good at detaching from friendships, and I think that's part of being more business minded, is not considering networks as friendship groups. But I'm not very good at that. I'm a bit sentimental and get into the humanity of the person. I mean, I'm trying to, give myself a compliment here and dress it up like it's a kind of a shortcoming, but you know what I mean. It makes me a kind of weak business person. But I'm going to try and work on capitalizing on certain avenues that I've been going down as far as investing in my own art career, because this is all I do. I don't do another job. I make art and I sell art and I make videos, and I try to work towards monetization for this channel so that I can earn an income. And it's early days, but I'm really starting to feel this need to make ends meet now, because it's difficult to stay afloat when you don't have a regular income. And I think that's a lot of the reality for artists, is a regular income isn't part of the business model of an independent artist. If you're working for a company, I think that's quite different. It's more structured and it can be hard going as far as the demands on your work and your practice, but that's the trade-off for being a working artist. But I'm trying to do it the harder way again, where I'm trying to avoid pop culture and do my own drawings, create my own ideas and make that work. So hopefully that will be something which I build on more in a more strong, direct way next year. Because this year it's been very good. I've had 5 exhibitions, and separate from that, a gallery which I'm exhibiting in full time now. As far as exhibitions, I mean, it's an exhibition for, say, a month or a couple of weeks. But there is a gallery which just houses my work now as a resident artist, which is nice. And I think there might be a second gallery which I have for that, which I'm really happy about. I wanted to have artwork in galleries, and I'm still applying for things and trying to make things work for other types of artwork, because I have this dream of having this type of a drawing that I do online, and maybe do the odd exhibition if I can ever find a place to have a suitable, venue and kind of clientele, is that the word, or kind of demographic to come in and view these types of drawings where they're all framed and exhibited. That's something which I hope to find in the future, because I do a lot of more of these types of drawings than anything else. But I have this dream of having a second outlet for my artwork, which is painting. And I've been working on it a little bit, not enough. It's fallen by the wayside, and I really want to strengthen that. Ideally, I'd like to have other things on the go as well. I mean, interviews is another part of what I think should be factored as a business model, because I do a lot of interviews and I love it. It's incredible. It's so much better an education than I received at university. But that's something which I'm hoping will work out as part of a steady income, because it's a lot of work. Because not only do I do the interview and research on the artist, I'll then have to do additional research and hours and hours of editing in order to create a podcast that is visually stimulating, because I add videos and still images where the artist will mention a name or talk about a specific trip they took or a specific painting they made. If you want to check any of that out, it's called Painting Insights Podcast. That will be in a link in the description below this video. And in a lot of my videos recently, I've been making sure that Painting Insights is in there. So go and subscribe to that channel and check out the videos, because they're all an amazing resource. Even if you're not interested in painting, if you ever sit and draw, it's just an hour or so of hearing professional artists talk. And that's part of the threshold for qualifying for our podcast, is that you have to be a professional working artist. And it may sound a little elitist, but I say we, it's me and a co-host, Richard Blades, who's a professional working artist for 10 years. He's a fantastic painter. And we're trying to make the podcast an amazing resource for people to learn about painting, but also to make it viable for sponsorship and monetization and trying to earn me money, because Richard has makes a living as a painter and an art teacher. So he's helping me by trying to get the monetization come through as quickly as possible so that I can start to make a bit of money. Obviously, you don't make art to make money, but that's just part of what I'm doing. It's quite ironic that this is where I thought I'd discuss that, because I am drawing something a bit more evil and sinister and demonic, and that is a lot of people's conception of their relationship with money. And I certainly find it a very difficult thing to reconcile, is the love of art making, the purity of the intention, and yet the necessity of selling or finding ways of making that financially viable is a bit of a tightrope. So it was based on the amount of subscribers I had at the time 4 days ago, 666, which I'm very happy to reach that milestone in my YouTube channel and video making. I am hoping that 1,000 will turn around, because I want to do something special for the 1,000 subscribers. I celebrated the 500 subscriber mark, and I'm going to make a big deal of the 1,000, because that's where I can start to try and push for the amount of watch hours that is required in order to monetize. There are videos on this. I'm not going to talk about all the different things that you have to do. I think it's 10,000. I don't know what it is. Have a look. You can find out what it is where you can all of a sudden monetize, because right now YouTube is running adverts on my most popular videos, making money off my videos by running ads, and I don't make any of the money. So I'd like to be able to make some of that money myself. You know, see, I hate saying that. It sounds so, I don't know, like you're really cheapening the arts, but in reality, I think that it's worthy of being considered work. It's full-time work that I do. Drawings, video making, and interviews, and all the different things that I do is legitimate full-time work. I'm 41 years old, almost 42. I've worked all types of jobs all my life, and this is some of the hardest I've ever worked. It's non-stop from morning till night. You just pile all your energy and effort and creativity into this investment of yourself. But it is starting from not even the first rung, from before the first rung of a ladder, to try and get onto the ladder of being a business. And so far it's been very difficult. But I love art making. I love meeting other artists and talking to them. And I'm hoping that that will happen. Anyway, that's the end of my will this ever make money rant. Now I will talk about the drawing side of this, which is basically... It was tricky. It was tricky in the way of, it's just a lot of work covering this surface and trying to preserve edges. I always find it difficult because of my camera setup as well. But I like the image and I like the mutation, and I'm trying to play with different shapes. The tricky part for me was making sure that I didn't make a mess of certain shapes I'd already drawn. Because if you do, then you're cutting into that shape and changing it, and you have to try to hide the mess that you've made. And I'm not especially, good at that. I'm quite, unruly with the such a small nib. I can kind of hatch into a shape that I wasn't supposed to hatch into, and I want it to be a decent drawing aside from this big chaotic mess that I'm making. I want it to kind of make sense. I say make sense, it doesn't really make sense, but I want it to look like a swirl of something, as if it's in motion, like an animation, like a frame of a film. That's what really inspires me, is, the old 80s and 90s animated films that would be really amazing animation and interesting looking characters, and I'd start to see mutation elements in animated films and just think this is exciting to me, to have these, morphing hard to describe, kind of, blobs or threads or whatever it is, just wisping past the camera or fusing with the main character. And that's what I'm trying to emulate, I suppose, in the background of this. But the first thing I had to do was to just hatch and cover the background to separate it from the main character and to isolate it from all of these different elements that are around him. And it's tricky in that way as well, but also trying to figure out how to make the black puddles of spilled ink and wiped ink that I did earlier work, which I thought I'll probably hatch back into that with cross-hatching and try to just fill it in with the rotoring pens, but they were starting to struggle on this surface. One person left a comment about the difference between rotoring isographs and rotoring repeatographs, which is what I'm using, is repeatographs. They are great pens. I don't know what the difference is. I'll need to get some isographs to see what the difference is, but at the moment I don't really know. They look the same. They have refillable cartridges. I don't know. I'll have to use them or Google what the difference is. So I'm excited to try that in the future. There are a couple of pens that I need to clean out because they have clogged up, and I think there are ways of cleaning it. But I've heard that sometimes if you've left it too long, you've lost a pen. So that may be the case. Hopefully not, because I'd like to do more of this type of drawing. I think that they just have a quality to them which is beyond what I can achieve with fine liners or brush pens. With fine liners, they have a weird way of fading the edges of lines, and rotoring pens don't have that. It's a solid line. It doesn't taper at the edges, it doesn't go to a point. It just stays a solid line. And there's something about it which is quite really nice. It's also quite dark ink, which I really enjoy. And yeah, they're an interesting thing to use. You have to hold the pen fairly vertical to make them work and hover them over the surface, which you don't have to do with fine liners. So towards the end of this drawing, I think I was doing damage to the pens that were working because I was getting tired and holding the pen on an angle and pressing down too hard and things that you just shouldn't do. But this is where I'm now cross-hatching into the background, and that's why I was hatching all of the background, because if you then hatch in a different direction on top of that, the cross-hatching will create this interesting dark mid-tone, and then I can work that into shadow. And I wanted to basically create more shadow patches to increase the contrast between these different elements of the drawing. So yeah, it was an enjoyable drawing at times, but at other times it was more laborious because of how I was trying to achieve a certain look and struggling to do that. But I think if I could just relax and get into longer drawing sessions of doing these types of images, it probably wouldn't be so strenuous.